Welcome back. It's our weekly look at finance with financial contributor Stephen Carlton, First Vice President from Janney Montgomery Scott. Welcome back. Looks like you're kind of surprised to be here. What's going on?
Megan, I am a little bit surprised. When I heard about the Mayan calendar and the fiscal cliff and everything else, I thought maybe this is it. Maybe this is the end. Maybe some of these people are actually right. But good news, everyone. Happy New Year. We made it. We're okay. It's a new year, and I'm just glad. I just wish it was a little bit warmer, like Jeremy was saying earlier.
I know. Well, Happy New Year to you as well.
Thank you very much.
So what's really on your mind?
Other than the cold,
Yeah.
it's funny. I've been having a lot of conversations the last couple of days, and it's been about the weather. And the weather in this community is so important. When we think about the tourism, when we think about skiing and snowboarding and snowmobiling and cross-country skiing and snowshoeing, the bed and breakfasts, the ski chalets, they're so dependent on weather. When I think of what happened last year with the lack of snow, it really hurt this area. And thankfully, we've got some good snow. And I was listening to Jeremy talk, and I'm like, let's hope we get a little bit more, because that drives tourism in the area.
That's so true. Well, things are looking up, it seems like. The stock market ended the year in double digits. The fiscal cliff came to an end, shy of New Year's Eve. And, things are looking pretty good for 2013, right?
Yeah, there's some definite positives. There's some challenges we're facing. The stock market is one measure of the economy. It doesn't necessarily measure the health of American families, but it's a good way to measure how the individual companies are doing in this country. So yeah, we have a lot to be thankful for. The stock market up double digits, and that's kind of the silver lining. You say about the fiscal cliff, it all being solved. There's some good news in this, but it's a far from being over.
So everything wasn't fixed?
Yeah, you read between the lines on that, didn't you? So, what I see is a couple things that were addressed. We look at George Bush's permanent tax cuts putting in place for about 99% of Americans. So that was good news. The tax rate for the majority of Americans is going to stay pretty much the same. That was a big important news. We had the unemployment issue that a lot of people were worried about. The Democrats were able to put that into the platform. And also the AMT issue. People were really concerned about millions of Americans being brought into this alternative minimum tax. And it looks like both parties were able to find a compromise and bring that into the budget.
Wait, so there's going to be a new tax, or no new tax for the middle class?
Well, it's technically true and technically not. We know that the payroll tax changes that took place in January this year is we're going to have to start paying more into Social Security. So that temporary cut that we got for payroll tax 2 years ago, that's now come back into play. So the average American making about $50,000 a year is looking to pay about $1,000 more out of payroll. So it's going to affect them. So there are some taxes coming in. Not as bad as we first thought, but it is going to affect people, no doubt about it.
Well, Steve, I don't want to pay any more taxes, just like every American out there. We don't want to pay anymore.
No. Who wants to pay more taxes? But that's the challenge that we're facing as Americans, right? We value the programs that we have in place. We value the safeguards. We value things like Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. We value the entitlement programs for agriculture and energy and everything else. And it's kind of like a parent that maybe spoils their kids a little bit too much. There's a risk here that the government has gotten the general population too used to all these programs, and we haven't really figured out how to pay for them. This fiscal cliff was about debt. It was about too much debt for individuals, too much debt for corporations, and for the country as a whole. I don't believe that that's been solved yet. Raising taxes really only solved a very small slice of the pie. I think this is just going to continue to unfold in the next little while.
I think that's a good way to put it, kind of like a spoiled child. That's actually, it really is. Because everyone has that friend that, is spoiled and keeps on getting and getting. When does it stop? So do you kind of think maybe this is a Band-Aid for the problem?
It really is. It's kind of like popping an aspirin if you had cancer. It's kind of, a Band-Aid really isn't going to solve this. The issue really is we're spending more than we're bringing in. And so it's like that teenager that maybe lives at home, and then they get in their early 20s. By the time they're 27, 28 years old, the parents are going, how do you get them out of the house? Well, I think the government's in a situation where they have to figure out how to cut back on some of these programs that they don't know how to pay for. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to do that, and both parties have very different solutions. So I think over the next 6-8 weeks, we're going to face another challenge. We went from fiscal cliff. Now the next catchphrase is going to be the debt ceiling. And the debt ceiling simply means is we've spent all the money that we're allowed to spend. what are we going to do next? And so the Republicans and Democrats, I think, are going to move into another very contentious period where they're going to have to look at, do we cut back on entitlement spending? Do we cut back on tax deductions? Do we, where do we come up with this? And it's going to be a very intense debate, I think.
So from fiscal cliff to debt ceiling, there's going to be a lot more conversations ahead in the next few weeks.
Yeah, you know, I was telling somebody today about it, and I said, if you ever watch a boxing match, the first round, I think many people said, went to the Democrats. They got a lot of the things that they were fighting for, a lot of the parts of the program that they wanted to get. But this fight isn't over. This is just the first round, and I think that the Democrats are going to face Republicans going to the debt ceiling, and the Republicans are going to be much more aggressive about cutting entitlement spending, cutting things that really the Democrats are trying to protect. So it's going to get very, very contentious. People think it's over. It's far from over at this point.
And let's move on to some happier news.
Sure,
something
absolutely.
exciting happening in Saratoga Springs.
Oh, there's always stuff going on. I went the other night to first night, New Year's, and it was freezing cold.
Time.
The hot apple cider, the chili,
Yep.
It was great. Everybody seeing all the people downtown. And one of the things I noticed is I walked by the Borders bookstore on Broadway, and I noticed that they had, I think we've got a picture of it.
There we go.
They've got all the windows covered up, and construction is underway. Finger Paint Marketing has started the process on this building. This building is in a great location. It's the center of the city. And it was really exciting to see that Finger Paint Marketing has started the project. And we're really it's going to be really nice to see this building get put back into use.
Yeah, that's very exciting. So it's not all a downward cliff.
No, in anything in these situations, there's always good and bad. There's a lot of good to take from this. But, we're really in a situation where we have some tough decisions to make. And just keep on holding to the good and the challenges. But I think these are going to be very intense conversations, and we're far from over on this. So keep your fingers crossed we can solve it.
Thanks, Stephen. It's always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure. I'm sure we're going to be continuing this conversation for weeks ahead.
I was going to say for a long time.
But you
to
always
share
make it fun.
I try.
I mean, putting it in good
Thank you.
perspective tonight.
Thank
Stephen
you.
Carlton, First Vice President from Janney Montgomery Scott. Now, to see this conversation and all our conversations, head for our website. It's looktvonline.com.